want to talk about, and one which may be a little bit unusual, but you probably heard on the news that there was a breach at Equifax, which does the monitoring of your credit reports and whatnot. I would encourage you to go on Equifax.com, follow the procedures to find out if you were impacted. I did it this morning and I'm impacted. So what they do then is then you follow another set of procedures. They give you a date that you can then sign up for free monitoring for the next year or so. But again, there's no rhyme or reason. My wife went on. She was not impacted, but unfortunately I was, so it should be a fun year to see who's trying to get credit on my behalf. So I would really encourage you to do that. The reason they'll give you a date to then sign up for the free monitoring is because they don't want everybody trying to do it all at once. So my date is sometime next week, and they'll give you a date as well. We will be having a celebration. It's called Celebrate, Learn, and Participate. It'll be on September 29th between 6:30 and 8:30 at the corner of McCulloch and Querio. Used to be known as the Springburg McAndrew Park. And we're going to have the community there so we can show them what some of the plans are for that acre and a half of property. As we've talked before, that property was purchased by the city about, now it's close to 6 months ago. The community, as part of the town hall, said that we really needed to do something to improve our downtown area. So we went out, purchased that property, and then we have a plan for development that actually helped us win the $2 million from America's Best Communities competition from Frontier. And so we're going to kind of lay out all of those plans. But basically, half of that property will be a public square owned by the city, and then we will sell off the other half of the property with stipulations to any developer as to what our expectations are that could be developed and what kind of commercial businesses would be there. We spoke to our economic development group just a couple of days ago, and they said that that the interest is so high that they actually have to put together a model or a matrix to make sure that they get the best developers, best businesses, etc. So we're thrilled about the fact that the interest is as high as it is. But we'll be serving. Let's see, we got there'll be treats from Scoops, small cakes, we be poppin'. There'll be a beer and wine garden from Stone Brewery, and there'll be also some snacks from Barley Brothers, Chagru's, and Javelina. So it should be a wonderful event. I think everybody will enjoy it. And again, it allows our community to fully understand what we're trying to accomplish there. In that regard, Charlie and I went to see Dr. Crow in Tempe a few weeks ago. Dr. Crow, for those of you who don't know, is the president of Arizona State University. And we went with the idea of just asking him, getting a firm commitment that ASU is here to stay because their enrollment is less than they thought it would be, and of course it's lower than what we thought it would be. And the answer to the question is they are absolutely committed to growing that campus. Nothing has changed in his eyes, and we showed him some of the plans that we have for downtown and connecting ASU to it. And so he's invited us to come back in October to do a little brainstorming so that we can collectively improve the entire area and assist them in growing ASU. We're going to also invite the school district because they're a major party to that, because they're using an old school But they would like to see maybe a longer-term lease so that they can make some additional investments there. So we're excited about his commitment. As you drove across the bridge, you probably looked to your right and noticed there's a lot of construction. That is the new hotel we've been talking about for the last year and a half. It is under construction. Parking now, while it is clearly at a premium. We get that. But it's a minor inconvenience until that hotel is completed. They expect to have it done, I think around June of next year. It's a Holiday Inn Express. They've, as you probably also noticed, that down in the Old English Village area, it's no longer all broken up cement and crappy looking stuff. They redid all of that. It's nice, beautiful pavers, and they're still not done. More landscaping will be done. They want that whole area beautified, obviously, for the customers of the hotel. So we're excited that it finally did get started, and we can't wait for it to finish.
Mark, is the parking lot ours, or does it belong to them?
Them. That whole area, belongs to them.
In that vein, as far as the parking is concerned, and we spoke with the VRE folks, and city staff will be installing a crosswalk across London Bridge Road at Marlboro, right there by the Eagles, because there is city parking behind that little retaining wall there. So we're going to put in a proper crosswalk and warning lights for people who want to park off-site, or especially for employees in the village, or those who ride the ferry across to work at the casino. It'll give them a place to park and a safe way to cross that street so that they won't be taking up space in those public parking areas down by the bridge.
Other projects that we've talked about in the past, Cypress Park has started, and so it's moving along fairly quickly. We anticipate having new soccer fields for the community's children available by next March. Again, that's an area, or an amenity, I should say, that we were truly lacking on. We did a field assessment report. It was pretty clear that for a community our size, gosh, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Wow. For a community our size, we were lacking in both ball fields and soccer fields, and the council has responded. Cypress will have 4 new soccer fields, and we've begun the planning for Sarah Park that will include additional ball fields, 4 new ball fields if I remember right, a few more soccer fields, and then the second phase, some additional fields as well, and then we think we'll be where we need to be. One of the things that we are excited about is that like other communities such as Bullhead City, if you've got those kinds of amenities, it's amazing the number of tournaments that come to your communities. And Bullhead City, they do very well with that, but we would even do better because the hotels are here in Lake Havasu City. In Bullhead, most of the people stay in Laughlin, so the money goes to Nevada and then come on over. So we are excited about that, and it will help us help all the businesses, and sales tax revenue is always a nice thing to have. The Riviera project, they're waiting on 404 permitting, and they're still working with us at the city to move forward on that project. They admittedly had hoped to have the 404 permit by now, and we don't have it. So until they do, there isn't a whole lot of grading they can do on that new.
Can you explain what that permit is, Mark?
I wish I knew when that was. It was supposed to be done in August, and so.
Yeah, actually, I think it's the Corps. It's the Corps of Engineers.
Oh, is that who you asked who from?
No, what it is.
Yeah. It's
from 404 permit from the Army Corps of Engineers. I'm sorry. I thought you asked when, and I wish I knew when.
Yeah, since the There will be work done along the shoreline
Right.
of the lake that requires federal permitting, and there's an extensive review process. And anybody who's had anything to do with federal permit process knows that it takes painfully long to get that done. So they had hoped to be a little bit further along than they are, so there's a delay there, but it's futile to try and rush that system because often that has a reverse effect. So we're just trying to be patient as possible.
Yeah, and the Corps has been pretty good in the last few years. I remember probably close to 10 years ago when we were trying to develop the business park, a 19-acre business park. I remember going to Tucson with a couple other people to meet with the person that was in charge of those permits from the Army Corps of Engineers. We sat around the table, and before I could say anything, she said, "Let me tell you how this is going to go. It's just not no, it's hell no." So that was our start of that meeting. But we ultimately were able to get a permit, although 19 acres turned into 12 acres of buildable space, which was really kind of a bummer. The 30th of September, we are looking for volunteers to help us on National Public Lands Day over at Sarah Park at the trailhead, where everyone calls it Sarah's Crack. So right there, we've made a number of improvements there, including restrooms, etc. But we want to help get some more volunteers as part of National Public Lands Day to do some additional landscaping amenities and that sort of thing. And what else?
They need to sign up as a volunteer, register online.
Oh, register online as a volunteer on the city's website. So that should be we'll only be out there for a few hours.
Couple hours.
Yeah, and so it's usually an enjoyable time. A few years ago, we actually had more than 300 volunteers show up down at the channel to help just pick up rocks down there. And how many truckloads of rocks did?
Oh my gosh.
Like 40 or 50 or even maybe more truckloads of rocks.
It was a ridiculous amount.
Yeah, it
But
was.
they always grow back.
And that is the amazing part. They always come back. It's like, what the heck?
You would love that. Just dump them in the driveway.
Yeah, and then also just a couple of years ago, a bunch of volunteers showed up to clean up a beach called That Beach, and that's what it's called, That Beach, over on the island. And so that was a good project. Also, unfortunately, it didn't last very long. It wasn't respected, the work that got done. Let's see, what am I forgetting?
9/11.
9/11 on Monday, a 9/11 remembrance ceremony over at London Bridge Beach by the flags, where all the flags are. The ceremony will start at 8:30, not 8 o'clock, which the paper said this morning. It will start at 8:30. Having said that, if you are going to be there, I would get there early because it's amazing how many people show up, and then you're walking a long ways in terms of parking. So
Park, bring chairs and a pop-up.
chairs and
It's
a
going to be
pop.
hot.
Okay,
People go down during that.
Chairs and shit.
chairs and shade. My wife's telling me.
I'll have water.
And we'll have water. It does get a little warm. Hopefully, the fact that we're starting a little bit earlier will help, but we'll see.
Do you know who's going to speak?
I am.
Oh, you always do.
And who else?
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, I know I am.
But Watts is the MC.
Yeah, my speech won't last more than about 45 minutes. So. Yeah, I shortened it this year. Too many the Thunderbolt kids kept dropping while in the middle of my speech. But that's always a really nice ceremony, and it's an attack on America that we just can't ever forget about. Much the same as Pearl Harbor. So.
Search for something.
Oh, well, I guess we could talk
Just
about
anybody
that. Earlier today, I was asked when Charlie's last day was. I'm going to just pick on him for a minute. And I said, well, December 29th. And he said, well, when's he going to stop working? And I said, 2 years ago. We do have a search right now going for a city manager. The entire city council met with the recruiter over the last couple of days to explain to that recruiter what we were looking for in terms of not just experience, but personality, management style, that sort of thing. And so we anticipate the first week in November that we will have a number of candidates for review by the city council. And then we'll narrow it down probably to about 3, 4, maybe 5. And then do some more interviews, and we hope to have somebody on board in January. So we will miss Charlie, no doubt about it.
And we can see how broken up he is.
Yeah, he already went out and bought an RV. Tested it out over the weekend and found out all the things that were needing repair.
Well, I was going to use your credit card.
Now that it's been
Now
stolen.
you discovered it's on the list. I might have to take it back.
But we are looking forward to having somebody on board as soon as possible. It's always difficult to bring in somebody that maybe not be familiar with the community, but most of us came from somewhere else, so we're not really too worried about it. One of the things that I told the recruiter that I was really adamant about is that whoever comes on board, they need to have an attitude of service to the community. And what I mean by that is, as Charlie likes to say, it's not no, it's yes if. And it really drives me crazy when you have bureaucrats, like I told you about the Army Corps, that start out with no. It drives you crazy. City Hall is a service organization. We're here to serve the community. And so I told the recruiter that if they had any sort of other attitude of, well, this is the ivory tower and this is how we do things and that's the way it's going to stay, then that person is off the list, absolutely off the list. So we do anticipate we'll get some good folks, and it is open up to people internally and externally. And the whole idea is that we want to make sure that we get the absolute best candidate, whether there's someone within the organization or outside the organization. And the best way for us to do that is to hire a professional that hires city managers all the time. We felt it was worth the little bit of money to do it that way. And typically they have the best contacts to make sure that we are able to do the appropriate outreach. I think that's pretty much it on projects. I will mention again the ABC. We did get our $2 million. I don't know if I said that last time, but we do have the $2 million from that competition. And we're heavily involved not only in the downtown project, but putting together a plan for the Eco-Environmental Center as well as the Entrepreneur Center to serve local entrepreneurs. We're also planning to go to, we hope we can get it put together, but we plan to go to Baghdad, Arizona, a group of us, because we met with the Freeport-McMoRan, a representative from Freeport-McMoRan, who happened to be sitting next to me at a economic development conference, and they were talking about some of their workforce needs, which were kind of in line with some of the struggles we're having as well. So we're going to go probably sometime in October and see them and see if there's a way we can help each other in terms of developing a workforce, not only for them, but for us as well. So it's amazing some of the contacts you make and then how it turns around and can help you with your own plans. All right, with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. Anybody?
Signs? Do you want to talk about signs?
Oh, wayfinding signs are going up.
It's only coming back down.
One is coming back down. They spelled Sarah correctly. They just didn't spell it with all caps, and which means it's wrong. So that sign came down, and we'll get that corrected. But it's a lot of the people that have seen the signs really like them. Admittedly, they are expensive, and it isn't because, well, we're overspending, but because of the nature of the requirements by ADOT for along the highway. It isn't just the sign, it's the posts, it's how it's installed, you name it. You can't just stick something there and hope that it's going to work. I will tell you that we are the only city in all of Arizona that ADOT is allowing these types of wayfinding signs. They don't allow them anywhere else. And it took us several years to get permission to do it. So they're looking at us as a case model to determine whether or not other communities can do the same thing. You know, I don't disagree that everybody has GPS and whatnot, but having said that, most of our visitors, or I shouldn't say most, many of our visitors don't use it. They look for signs. They look for signs, especially in the wintertime. They're looking for a sign. And in many cases also, on GPS, I think what people usually use it for is that is for, you know where you want to go, and so they put it in to get an address, and then your car or whatever, you help get you there. The GPS is not meant to let you know where some of the parks might be or some of the attractions that you're missing out on. So we think I look at it more of it's a beautification project, because if you'll see as the signs go up that they are much different than the normal signs, and it should help beautify our area. One of the things that we continue to see, would like to see though, is beautification of Highway 95 by ADOT, because there's still a lot of areas that don't have any landscaping that was promised more than a decade ago.
How many roughly Mark, Charlie, do you know how many there are?
116, I think.
Yeah, 110 or 112, I believe. 112, including the monument signs at each end of the
108?
Yeah, I think so. The paper listed up with 108.
Yeah,
well,
don't trust
Well,
the paper.
Don't believe
The paper's so accurate.
Well, he may not be counting the
That's why I'm asking.
monuments on
That's only a couple
both
percent,
ends as
yeah.
well.
It's 110 signs and the 2 monuments at each end of the city. Those will be.
Mayor, I have a question.
Of course.
You know, we're doing all the stuff that's like the signs and the property that you bought on McCullough. But the biggest things that I find that is really disturbing is that we have so many visitors that come here, as you already know. And our streets are looking so terribly run down. And there's hardly enough repairs that the city needs to be done. You know, the money seems like, I talked to you several years ago. I'll give you an example. Industrial is very, very busy. I see more trucks, more ambulance, more police using that highway or that road, and it's deteriorating very badly. And that's not the only street that's that way.
Sure.
And the problem is, when people come visit our city, the roads are terrible. I mean, just go on Lake Havasu Boulevard, or Avenue. I mean, they're so tore up. Even McCullough, if you go up McCullough from Bashes, you know, up, you know, from Acoma to McCullough going up, it's terrible. I mean, this is a thing that we're trying to make the city look good, and the roads are just being tore up and not being done with it. Industrial example is that the streets have been patched so badly there. And when I talked to you, you said it was going to look like in front of the gas station in Smith's. And then the people who were working it says that they ran out of money, so they only did a patch-up job again. And so it just keeps going patch-up, patch-up.
Yeah, I don't know why they would say patch up, because that isn't the case.
Well, there's been some pipeline work that's been done in there.
has,
So
the water lines, we have broken all the
there's
time.
some cut patches that are in there. I don't know where industrial is on our list of streets that need to be done. Like Havasu Avenue and McCulloch both are on our CIP list for as pavement projects. I'd have to check on where industrial
Well,
is.
from
but-
Bahama to Acoma, especially that area there on the industrial, is all tore up. I mean, it just seems like it's just like up and down. And the other thing too is that for beautification for our city is that, I don't know what they use for paint here, but they paint the streets, you know, the lines, in a couple months, they're gone. I don't know what we're using as paint.
It's called heat.
Yeah, well, I know that too, but there's got to be some better way to keep the paint on a little bit longer than normal because it's gone.
Yeah, you know, all I can tell you on the streets, that we do monitor every street. We have an index.
PCI.
What's it called?
PCI.
PCI.
Pavement Condition Index.
And what we do is based on that index, those are the roads that we work on first. As Charlie said, we're redoing Lake Havasu Avenue. I don't disagree that many of the roads in all communities in Arizona need to be improved. And in part, that is because, and I know this sounds like an excuse, but it's actually a fact, the state of Arizona, to balance their budget, has taken somewhere around $1.4 billion away from cities and towns for roads. It's gas tax that you paid here in Lake Havasu City, and they kept it.
It's going to DPS.
It's going to DPS and other, and then they divert the DPS money for other state agencies. We continue to fight to get more of that back, and we have increased our own budget, even though we wouldn't have needed to do that had they just let us have the money that we were entitled to. But so when I don't disagree that some of the roads really do need some work, and we continue to monitor those as much as we can. When I go to other cities, if you think our roads are bad, try going down to the ones that we were just at, Oro Valley. Oh my goodness gracious. I was afraid I was going to get a flat tire. But you know, that's, again, we'll continue to do that. We have diverted more money toward roads now that we are a growing community, and we usually don't start fresh, although some roads, including McCulloch Boulevard downtown, that's got to all be redone, and that's in our plan. The whole street needs to be entirely redone. But before we did that, one of the things we have been doing is working with the community to figure out how they might like to see that downtown area change. For instance, a lot of the businesses are saying we would like to see wider sidewalks for patio dining, you know, in the non-summer days or season. And what we didn't want to do is they wanted to see different parking configuration, and what we didn't want to do is then repave that whole thing and tear it up and start again. So that's taking a little bit longer. But Lake Havasu Avenue, that one is being done. What's the schedule on that one?
It's
pretty
start
soon.
this fall.
Okay, this fall on Lake Havasu.
How far is that going to go?
Well, it's going to be
It's going to encompass both the intersections at Mesquite and
And
Swanson
Swanson.
and McCulloch.
right.
But
possibly
how
the-
far it goes
Yeah.
beyond that, I'm sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, because one of the reasons we're doing it there is not only is the road kind of chewed up, but we have a lot of accidents, people trying to make lefts when they really shouldn't be making lefts. And so we're going to be putting some medians in to avoid that and reduce the number of accidents. Then Highway 95 is going to be redone up by the old Walmart shopping center.
That's really bad there. That is terrible there.
that.
Yeah.
And I didn't think the city had any choice on this. Isn't it ADOT that has?
It's ADOT money, and
Right.
we have choice in that we have input, because they wanted to put a roundabout there.
No.
And that's funny, that's the same face I had when they told me.
We got no problem with the seniors coming from other states. No
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
No.
Well, that's what we kind of said. So, again, that area has a lot, there's more accidents in that area than anywhere else in
It
town.
is.
So they will be adding some medians to avoid the left-hand turns, creating a new driveway, because at first they were only going to put the existing left-hand turn, and that's not enough for that shopping center. So they're going to
Be
put
another
one,
intersection.
there's going to be another intersection about a quarter mile up that allows people to go.
It's going to be a signalized intersection right about where Staples is. And that intersection will be a traffic light controlled entrance into that shopping center right in front of
That
Staples.
one needs it really badly.
Yeah. We actually wanted the light behind Staples, but there isn't enough room. There's that huge wash there, so there was no way they could do it. So
Are they going to do something about industrial and 95 where there's bushes as you look to your left as you're going? Is ADOT going to clean all that up so that we
we can mention it to them.
I mean, because it's a hazardous thing because they got to stick out,
I
and
agree.
you're going to take it for going over the line, knowing that you can't see.
Yeah, and we'd be happy to get volunteers to take it all out, but we got in trouble.
you can't
for trying-
do that.
We can't do that.
No.
Yeah, we got in trouble for that idea. So, yeah, because years ago I actually said, since you guys aren't doing the beautification as you promised,
That's right.
tell you what, we'll get volunteers. You just pay for the materials, and we'll make sure it gets done. Nope, can't do that. Don't get in our right of way.
We wanted to put inmates out in the right of way just to pull weeds. And we were told, not no, but hell no. Because when they did that highway widening years ago, they did a hydro seed of all native plant materials, and they don't want us out there pulling them out. So there you have it.
But I agree there hasn't.
Yeah.
This gentleman,
Yeah, I have a major concern that there's a miscommunication between ADOT and Havasu Police Department. There's a jurisdiction there, and there's like a gap that needs to be bridged. If you guys have noticed, there's a lot of shuttle companies that I would say 98% of them are running illegally. I don't have a dog in the fight, but I do. I own Havasu's Party Bus, so I'm a limousine service, so it doesn't affect my business one way, shape, or form. My concern is the safety, that majority of those companies out there are running illegally, and every officer that I've ever talked to says that they are only allowed to ask for registration, proof of insurance. I'm working with ADOT as we speak, and it's a major concern because what happens is these guys are running around throwing magnets on their vehicles, and the oblivious is jumping into them and not realizing that they're getting in a vehicle that is not covered by their insurance. They're actually advertising that they cross state lines. You need a $1.5 million policy umbrella on top of your existing policy. I carry a $1.35 million policy. I have no intentions of crossing any state lines. I get offered it all the time. I don't want to do it.
sure.
Can we get that, make it, ADOT tells me that it is the jurisdiction of
The city? That is
city.
incorrect.
and see, and that's the problem.
The reason is there's state laws that monitor those services, and they do not give the right to the city to do that.
Okay, is there anything that the city can do?
We can try to change the state law.
We require that they have a business license. And
Yeah.
That's about where it is.
That's where it is.
Okay, yeah, because what happens is they're running around without insurance.
Well, I think it goes beyond that.
Oh, well beyond
Well
that.
beyond that, because we've had
That's
some
scary.
experiences where, well, I don't want to get into the details, but we know it's an issue, but because they're not considered, I guess, taxis, livery, right.
Delivery service.
And we can't get, and maybe this is something we can talk to Senator Borelli about, but the state has complete jurisdiction, and we can't require those services we can't, for instance, put together a city ordinance and require them to follow it, because state law doesn't give us that jurisdiction.
Okay, so that's where the bridge is not gapped, because my concern is safety.
Ours is too.
It always
Well,
has
two
been.
things. It's safety, people getting gouged, and a wide variety of other things.
It's a ball of,
Yes.
it's a mess.
Agreed.
And my intentions were to go to a council meeting to make it, my wife has 13 years with local city government, and California, let's just say that, everybody's from there.
Yeah, the problem is that state law right now preempts the city's ability to control that activity
Right.
in any way. And like the mayor said, we can speak to our senator, and if it's deemed to be an issue of statewide concern, it could be legislation come out of it. But I will tell you that those operators have a very strong lobby.
Yeah.
So they are very protective of their flexibility and their right to do things.
Okay, yeah, these are just the local ones that, I'm not talking about Uber or Lyft or any of that other stuff. I could care less about them. They do have coverage from the time of pickup till the time they drop off. As far as I've gone to code enforcement,
Yep.
State law preempts the city's.
no, this is part of the city regulations as far as a home-based business. It states that you can only disperse one company vehicle out of your home resident. It's sad that most of them are running like John Grant Foster. I know you've heard the name 1,000 times. You should if you go to the police department. He's got 7 vehicles there.
Yeah, well, that's against the law. So,
Oh, I know, and it's against the thing. I totally understand that, but I have gone to the.
Yeah. What I'll do, I'll talk to Senator Borelli, to see what we can do. I'm going to give you his phone number as well.
Okay.
Because he'll probably follow up. Just tell him to follow up with me.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
if
I
there's
appreciate it.
something we can do, we would like. Look, we have some of the same concerns. We actually a few years ago, a council member said kind of what you were talking about, and we tried to make changes to our ordinances, and we were prohibited from doing so.
Okay.
So because state law preempts our local ordinances.
Exactly. I thank you for your time.
You bet. Yes, sir.
In regards to the roads, and I don't know how the whole system works, but when a private contractor cuts into the road to put a pipe across or electrical lines or whatever, I would think that they need to be bonded, and that bond should be reviewed in a year's time to verify that the correct compaction been done and all that. So you see so many of these things, they come in there and then they fill it in, and next thing you know it's a Grand Canyon you're trying to cross across, and now all of a sudden then the city gets this, oh, your roads are shitty, Well, wait a minute, that was a fine road when we put it in. It's been cut into 1,000,000 times.
No, we do. And I agree that a lot of times what happens is that you start to see it just do this.
Yeah.
Because I've told him a few spots where I try to drive to work and suddenly it's this big hump. I would encourage everybody, because we can't be everywhere, download Havasu Now. That's from the city's website. It's called Havasu Now. It's a little app. Goes on your smartphone.
Yeah, from your app store.
From your app store, I'm sorry.
Yeah, put it in your smartphone, Havasu Now. It
And
takes 10 seconds to load it, and then you can take a picture of those things, and it'll send it directly to the department that needs to know about it. We like people to use it because it begins a paper trail. It opens a file that we can track. You get notified back as to what the status of that is, and we like it when people use Havasu Now. So that's a perfect application for that sort of thing. Now, we can't always have it fixed by that afternoon, but at least it gets it on our radar, so to speak. And yeah, because we don't like that stuff either. I mean, not only is it degrades over time, and then it makes people unhappy, and then you're mad at us for doing something that we may or may not have even known about. So that's why we like it when people use that app.
Have a seat now.
Yeah.
Have a seat now.
If I could expand on that, on the Have a Seat Now app, I've had 2 citizens just this week call me and contact me about issues that they have. And on both of those, after they've talked to me, I have the Have a Seat Now app on my phone. Instead of calling those departments, I actually did it on the Have a Seat Now app, and I have received emails, 2 emails every day, on what the status of the problem is, so I can get back to the citizens to take care of the issue. So it's definitely a great app to have. That one in the Lake Havasu Police Department app, where you can report things to the police department. There's 2 different apps. But the Havasu Now is outstanding. And
Yeah.
very, very, very easy to work with.
Yeah, more and more people are using it. It was developed a few years ago, and actually it was modeled after something Sedona, I think, was using.
Right. Well, Sedona did a similar thing.
Yeah, and it's been very, very useful. So I encourage you to do that. Yes, sir.
The reason I came today is and this Havasu Now might be a good resource, but I'm certain the city spent a lot of money on their chip seal program this year.
We do.
And, you know, I think lasting more than 3 to 5 months is not what you paid for. I live up on Lodestar Court, which is off of Lodestar Drive, up off of Kiowa. And it's like living in front of the La Brea tar pits, okay? Literally, the little mail truck has literally rolled all this stuff down the road when they stop at the mailboxes. It's just, we did not get our money's worth on that.
We'll take a look at it.
And I don't know whether it's the emulsion or the chip or the application or whatever, but the long streets like Kiowa and stuff like that, seems that all that's fine, but the little streets are unique. And just around the corner, there's a Carroll Lane, comes off of Carroll's little cross street, goes up there, and they got a coating that looks like the screen on that big screen TV. I don't understand. They got Jellystone Park, and we got, you know, we didn't get anything, okay? I don't understand how this got divided. Nobody asked me.
And it could have been part of that PCI.
I can answer that.
Yeah, go ahead.
This year, we decided to spend a little money to do the slurry seal, which is basically the black paint that you saw. It's in a cul-de-sac also.
Right.
Yeah, there are some cul-de-sacs that are configured so that there's a lot of what our traffic engineer calls turning movements, a lot of tire scuffing and turning.
Lodestar Court is also
in a small
cul-de-sac,
area. And so in those areas where there's a lot of those turning movements that are tearing up the chip seal, we're doing the slurry. We don't do the slurry on every street. We did years and years ago because people liked it, because it looks good. The problem is that it's very expensive, but if we were to slurry every street that we chip sealed, we'd only be able to chip half the number of streets that we do. During the recession, we decided that doing slurry seal was an aesthetic treatment to the street and was not necessary for the increasing the longevity of the traveled way, which is what the chip seal does. So we did away with the slurry, but now we're bringing the slurry back in those areas where there's a lot of those turning movements that are tearing up the chip. And so if you use your Havasu Now app and send in a picture of what it is your problem in front of your mailbox or whatever, then we add that to the list of reasons why we might want to go back and do some slurry again. But again, we'd only be able to protect half as many streets if we slurried them as we do if we don't slurry them. So it just, the chip seal adds about 7 years to the lifespan of a traveled street. Slurry doesn't add anything more than just a nice, clean, black surface. People like it. Yes, it looks great. I wish we could afford to do them all that way.
The other thing that transpired is just after they did that, I noticed that all the aprons coming up into the sidewalks were all covered in these little BBs all over. So I contacted the road department, the city road department, and they assured me that, oh yeah, we're gonna come back and the contractor's gonna come back and re-sweep the whole thing and all that, okay? I haven't seen him, okay? He's not here.
Yeah, well, we just re-signed a contract with the sweeper.
Yeah, we've doubled the amount of sweeping because of complaints about the gravel that's been left behind. So we've doubled the amount of sweeping. What they may not be doing though is going up into driveways and
Not driveways, but on the sidewalks where old people are walking with canes and walkers and stuff like that. And it's like walking on marble. You know, the city could be sued for a lot of money.
Well, that might be another good application for your Havasu Now app, just to let us know where that is. We'll get somebody out there to fix it.
I have one good thing to say, not the bad thing about the town. We live in Southwind, and Southwind is like a freeway. But here lately...
That's the good thing?
Here lately, I love it, I love it, I love it. We have the police department up there hiding in their little cubbies and stuff. And one of our guys that we have coffee with every morning, he says, you know what, I was going down Southwind, and that damn guy gave me a ticket. I said, how fast were you going? He said, 40. I said, what does the sign say? Oh, well, yeah, but he said he didn't give me a ticket for speeding. He gave me a ticket for using too much gas and emotions going up.
Oh,
What?
wasting a finite.
Yeah.
I've got one of those.
But I wanted to just make a comment because I'm very happy to see these guys slowing down a little bit.
Yeah, you know, I don't even know how to comment on it. I was telling Charlie yesterday I was coming down McCulloch, and the speed limit's 35. I was probably doing 40, 41, and somebody blew by me. They had to be doing 50.
Oh yeah.
Our police force does everything they can. You can't have a policeman on every corner.
You can't expect them to do everything.
But we see it all the time, and we will put those electronic monitors out there. That tends to help for a while.
I like that.
But it doesn't help
Oh,
permanently.
that's real good.
You know, speeding's going to be here forever.
I realize that, but somebody's going to get really hurt.
I don't disagree. But we do our best to monitor it, and not a whole lot more of it can be done.
I mean, I just make me feel real proud to see these guys working, slowing these hot rodders coming down.
Sure. Yeah,
As a general rule, this is a very safe community.
Huh?
As a general rule, this is a very safe community, especially by comparison to many other communities our size or even much bigger than us. So I think we can all be very proud of the job that our public safety personnel do for our community. This really is a very safe place to work.
We just really appreciate the fact we've seen 3 people ticketed just lately. I'm really glad to see
Oh, they
that.
write tickets?
I mean, look at the revenue the city's getting.
that's funny. I'm
You'd be
glad
amazed how little that is.
I'm glad you put out that. We get that all the time. Well, imagine how much revenue you could get. We get about this much out of that
Yeah, I know.
ticket. We don't get hardly anything. It goes to other agencies. Yes, sir.
Good morning. With the city, doing the Riviera, this is going to be a massive amount of new homes, and with all the new construction in this town, that's water in, water out. Where's all the water going out to now, and where is the city in line getting all the city on the sewer system so we can all bear the cost?
Well, in terms of water, I get a lot of questions about water, Havasu Riviera. Again, that's a private development. In terms of the water, we are only using right now half of our water allocation. So a lot of people think that because of these new homes that we're going to run out of water. We have enough water from about 96,000 residents. We're at about 54.
On the other,
No, I know. Now, so then water in always produces water out. And they will be required to have, it's either going to be pumped into, they'll be on sewer.
right,
And they'll either have to do pumping stations to get to the main. There was some talk about
Yeah, there'll be a lift station.
a lift station, but there was also some talk about but I think we've
Treatment plant.
small one, but I think we've
Yeah,
abandoned that.
we're planning to do a small demonstration type treatment facility, what we call a package plant, as part of the Eco-Environmental Learning Center, and actually incorporated into the water learning element of the Eco Center. But that's, that's going to be very small. That's just a little demonstration project. But all of the wastewater from the whole Riviera project will go into our master wastewater system, and it will be treated, it will be reclaimed, and it will go out and be used for irrigation on the golf courses and parks and places where we can use that water.
And in terms of how many, just out of curiosity, what percent of homes do you think are not on the sewer?
I would think a lot of homes on the south end of town.
We have, it's actually about 9% of the homes throughout the community. And the reason many of the ones are not on the sewer is because, and I'll just do a little example. In many cases, they would have cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $30,000 to $35,000 to connect.
Right,
The average home was 17.
right.
So if we connect somebody at 35, you get to share in that difference.
I get to share in it, but a long-term
They
on that.
weren't, it wasn't gonna, they wouldn't produce enough revenue to help. What it really did was drive up the cost for 9% that the other 91% paid for. And so what we did was we strategically took some areas and said it cost way too much to sewer them. And in addition, what was approved back in 2001,
Right.
as far as the voter bond, that did not include the entire city. That was only from pretty much McCulloch down. There were some others like Foothills, that's sewer.
Right.
But that original agreement amongst the community did not sewer the entire community. So because
with Foothill developing again,
Right.
with what they're talking about, and our Riviera, I mean, it seems to me that we don't have the system built to accommodate all this.
Oh, yes, we do.
We do.
Absolutely. We're right now only using about 50% of our capacity of a sewer plant.
And are you using some of that water though for like the golf courses and stuff like
Well,
that?
the effluent was sold to golf courses and other areas. But we built the North Wastewater Treatment Facility that gives us the ability to do, between the other treatment facilities, I believe it's about 8.2 million gallons per day, if I remember right. We right now are treating somewhere around 4 to 4.2 million gallons per day. So we do have the capacity. The engineers at the time actually wanted us to do a second phase of that wastewater treatment facility, and we stopped that. And the reason we stopped it is because what we saw was that the more people that went on the sewer, the more conservative they got in their water use. And so we didn't think it was a good idea to spend $40 million to add another 2 million gallons per day capacity or whatever, when you're only using half of it now. So what we do have to do is that when we get to about 80% capacity, we have to begin building a plan to be approved by the ADEQ, Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, to expand our sewer capacity. Now, who will pay for that? It will be the developers that develop to the north of us, because we're pretty much running out of lots here.
Right.
So, but there is over 4,000 acres between, I guess it would be Kiowa and the airport. that is owned by Arizona State Trust Lands. And they will ultimately release those lands for development. That will be developed completely different than the way Lake Havasu was
And there is
developed.
water allocated for those properties?
Right.
And there's also sewer capacity built into our North Regional plant to also accommodate those properties. But the mayor's right, once we get to that 80% level, then we have to have a plan to expand our plant before they'll allow us to expand the community anymore. But that plant has the capacity, as you said, phase 2 was stopped as a, as a cost-saving measure because engineering-wise, it just didn't pencil out anymore. But that capacity is still available there in the future if we need to expand that plant.
Right.
Our biggest issue with wastewater treatment right now is the quality of the effluent coming out, which is severely impacted by the amount of self-regenerating saltwater softeners that we have in town. And while we're not going to do like many communities have done and ban self-regenerating saltwater softeners in the city, what we're now looking at is adding on an additional treatment train to the front end of our water treatment system that will help soften that water or not soften it, but lower the pH or whatever the problem is that's affecting the marketability of our effluent product, which is the water used to irrigate the golf courses and our parks. If that water gets too salty, that's like salting the earth, nothing will grow. So we want to protect the quality of that water as well because it needs to be marketable when it comes out the end of that plant.
But in terms of the properties to the north, as you know, Lake Havasu was kind of developed one home at a time.
Right.
And but those properties, what Arizona State Trust Lands does is they'll sell 400, 500, 600 acres at a time, and that developer is responsible for all the infrastructure. And we can actually extract from them. If we got to pay for more capacity, we would get those developers to help pay for that. So because existing residents shouldn't have to pay for that development. So that's the whole idea. And in terms of just a reminder of our sewer bills, while at one point in time we were probably the third highest in the state, and that was something that we pounded on with the financing authority down in Phoenix. Since 2010, we have not had a rate increase, not a single one. And because of the refinancing we did, we don't anticipate to have a rate increase for another.
Be careful now.
Yeah.
Careful.
It'd be after I'm gone, so what's the
There's a politician for you.
But it probably won't be for another 7 or 8 years. And I can't name a utility in the United States that said they didn't have a rate increase for over 14 years.
Mayor, is that considered, will be considered Havasu if they do that, or is that county? With the new development?
Oh, it's Havasu. It's in our city limits. And we have to provide water to them. It's within our water. What we did, one of the problems we had originally with the sewer project, and I know I'm going back a little bit here, but when it was first started, everything was, the debt was all front loaded. We were acquiring 20-year debt, which for a project that was going to last 50 to 60 years. And it didn't, and so as time went on, we kept getting this 20-year debt, and it just kept ballooning. In fact, we were paying, at one point in time, $22.5 million a year against that debt. And what it really did is the way it was originally financed, it meant the people in this room were going to pay the vast majority of all that debt for the benefit of the people who moved in 10 years from now. And so we went to and I won't tell you the entire fight we had with the state, including them trying to charge us $15 million in penalties for refinancing that we were able to get done away with. We actually went out on the open market, got incredibly good rates, a flat 30 years we reduced $22 million payments down to $13 million payments, and that's why we were able to turn off the rate increases. And so as we add more homes, it's actually going to help us, because we don't need to add capacity, we don't need to add anything. So there'll be more ratepayers as time goes on.
And the mayor makes that sound like it was just something we did one afternoon.
Yeah, it was
But
a long
it was a
process.
couple of years of some of the most painful, being told no, I don't know how many hundreds of times, and dealing with a hostile state agency that was telling us not no, but hell no. And we actually had to get 2 pieces of legislation passed just to get this agency to even work with us. And so we, they were mad at us, and I don't know how many people we had mad at us, but you know what? Mayor and I dogged that thing for a couple of years, and I got to tell you, that was probably one of the most significant accomplishments that I have made in my entire career. People ask me all the time, what do you think is your single greatest accomplishment as city manager for Lake Havasu? And it's like, well, that's got to be at the top of the list, because it was difficult. It took virtually everything I know how to do to get it done, and ultimately we did get it done. And for any agency in the state to say that they haven't had a sewer rate increase, especially one that has over $200 million in debt to put in a brand new sewer system, to say that the rates have not gone up in as many years as they have not gone up, and to make the claim that they won't go up again for another 5 to 7 years or however many years, I think is remarkable. I don't know, I think it's unprecedented. I think that this community can take great pride in that, that they have a mayor that was willing to go to the mat.
That was so huge for a small number of people. If you remember right, back in '01, the community said we'll buy for up to $460 million. And I think when we all voted for that overwhelmingly, I don't think we really understood what that was going to mean. Ultimately, we brought it in at about $350 million, $355. But and what we really did was, I sat down often about it. We said once the project is done, then let's look at what will that mean for the future, and how do we need to refinance it to make sure that's affordable. And that's what we ultimately did. We went to the agency that held all of our debt, and after they slapped us around a while, and we got legislation that required them to allow us to refinance without a $15 million penalty. We maintained a small amount of debt with them. I think it's $60 million. And then we ended up going out on the open market for about $180, $190 million. We used JP Morgan to help us with that project. And to just give you some idea as to what investors, if you will, think about our community and the strength of our financial ability, when we went out for that $180 million of debt out on the open market, within the first hour we had orders to buy $400 million of our bonds. We were only going to issue 180. So he and I got on the phone with JP Morgan and said, well, it looks like the interest rate just went down a little bit. And that's what we did. We kept lowering that rate until it balanced out. And so we ended up with some pretty darn good rates.
So we're still going to allow homes that are not in our designated area to be on septic tanks if they're being built in an area that doesn't have sewer. We're still going to allow homes to be built on septic?
Well, there isn't much left that can be built on septic.
If they're not in the sewer area, then no, they won't be required to hook up the sewer.
But Havasu, well, that's true and not true. Havasu Riviera, the new area you were talking about,
Right.
There's no sewer there, but there
Right.
will be.
No. And on a high note, are we going to connect Rotary to a path?
To the Riviera?
Yeah, because I'm a walker.
Sure.
And I was just curious if we're if that's part of the deal.
It's in the plan, but it's not part of the Riviera deal.
Right.
It's not a requirement of the Riviera project, but it is on the map. And so what the private development that is the Riviera project, yes, there will be accommodations there for a path. But they won't be required to actually put the path in all the way through Black Rock and across Body Beach and all
Well, I
that.
was just
So
wondering if the city was,
Well, it's not our property for one.
not your
Yeah.
property, but I mean, if there was something in the.
it's in the plan, yes, there is a plan for it.
Believe it or not, the people I walk with, and I walk with, dozens and dozens, and they're all, and the people that do the kayaking and all this,
Right.
they're all going, geez, I sure hope we're gonna take the skateboard park area there and connect the walking path down into this new project.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, we're,
Ultimately, someday, yes.
yeah, and we're trying to buy more property also at the, where the skate park's at.
Right.
To the south of that, we're trying to buy some more property from state lands to expand that park and more paths and that sort of thing.
That's one of the priorities of the Trails Committee when they sit in their meetings that they're talking about, is trying to get trails to go from Rotary Park all the way up to the Riviera. It's just a matter of getting the property and the right of way to be able to put the path through.
Yeah, and that's the key, the right of way, because a lot of that's trust land.
Yep.
They're,
Impossible to work.
they're very difficult to work.
Mayor, I have a question for you.
Of course.
The other thing too, because the city's trying to grow, and when I moved here, I wanted a small town. It ain't happening.
It's not happening
It's not
anywhere in
happening.
America unless it's.
But the thing is that I'm concerned about is that the value of our property in some areas have gone down because of some residents do not want to keep their property updated, clean, organized. And I've been fighting with, well, not fighting, but discussing it with code enforcement to
Right.
take care of some of these issues. And I'm having rodent problems, and I had to call the health department on some people that have pools and don't clean them, keep them clean, and that kind of stuff. And they're very helpful. The health department is really on it. But code enforcement can't say they can't. There are certain things that they have no responsibility to do to get involved in that. And I mean, this is helping our city if we all work together and try to make our property decent and habitable. And there's trailers sitting there that shouldn't be, they're not allowed even on the street because they're illegal. The tires and wheels that they have on them are like mobile home equipment on them. And they're not allowed to be on the street. They're just only to be a certain A to B, taken off and put on the ground. But the thing is, I always hear that they're shorthanded, they don't have enough manpower. That, I mean,
You shouldn't be hearing that.
No, that's not the case.
Really?
Here's really the case.
Okay.
Code enforcement issues have come to council 3 times while I've been mayor over the last 11 years. And what it starts out is some people in the community saying we either need proactive code enforcement or we need to strengthen, have new rules about what you can and cannot do. In the end, by the time we get all said and done with all the public hearings, what's concluded by the community is we don't want anything to change. I think over time, it will change.
it has to.
Well,
Well, don't you think?
It depends-
if
it
you want-
depends
if you
who
want
you
your
talk
property-
to.
If you want your property to get as much value out of your property, and if you try to sell your property with a person that doesn't want to
I know.
do that, you lose money. You almost have to take that person to court to
Yep.
get that resolved. But
And
the thing is,
I'll give you an example. The last time we went about code enforcement,
Parking in the front yards.
we suggested that maybe we should quit doing parking in the front yard of either vehicles, boats, trailers, you name it, stop it. And I swear I thought the people that showed up were gonna take and hang me from a tree. I am not kidding. They were ready to hang me.
I don't see any problem in that in some circumstances. But the problem is, I have a 22 car hauler. I put it in my backyard. It's in the backyard.
We suggested that.
And the thing is, I have enough property I could do that with, but there's some properties you can't. I understand that. But the problem is, when you leave a vehicle like a trailer that's about 24 feet long, has all their stuff in it. You can see it dangling all over the place. And code enforcement seem like they can't do anything about that. I mean, this is something
If
that...
that
Is
trade-
it registered?
If it's registered.
No, that's a good point.
If
That's a
it's-
good point, but I can't tell because I don't want to be on their property because then they'll call the cops on me because I'm on their property.
But code enforcement can check to see if it's registered.
Yeah.
They can do
That's
that.
that's one of the rules, is that it
Has
has
to
to
be
be
registered
registered. has to
and
be registered
operable.
and roadworthy.
Right.
If it's
Bingo.
not, then there's a violation.
Okay.
Our code enforcement people are very good at their job.
I've asked them about that.
Okay, but being a bad neighbor is not against the law.
I understand.
And, you know, it's unfortunate in many circumstances that bad neighbors are just bad neighbors, and we've all had them, or we all may have them now. But code enforcement can only go so far.
Oh, I know that.
And often, if there is a violation, the process to get these people to fix the violation can be so lengthy just because of the procedural process, the court process, what it takes to get it done. I know neighbors would like to see a police car pull up in the driveway and drag these people out of the house and throw them in the police car and arrest them and drag them
Take
away.
their trailer with them.
That's not how code enforcement works.
But we don't
So
expect that.
it's a lengthy process. They're given time to correct the situation. Often they correct just enough of the situation to get code enforcement off their back. The situation gets worse again. They get called back. We got to start the process over again. It takes weeks to in multiple steps. It's frustrating. We wish we could just make these people be good neighbors, but unfortunately, that's not an ordinance.
Yes, sir.
Morning, Mayor. I'm going to switch gears here a little bit. My name's Jeff. I'm from the Havasu Side-by-Side Club here in town. We started out with a handful of members and rapidly grew to over 700. With that being said, about 50% of our members are snowbirds from out of town. And one of the things that I look at as we grow is these people come into town, they basically get all the great benefits of us that live here full-time, and then they turn around and leave. So we started saying, okay, what can we do to give back? So last year we organized 2 different cleanups. And the first one, actually we worked with the BLM and we loaded 3 40-yard dumpsters of garbage we cleaned up, okay, in a matter of about 4 hours.
Out of the desert? or-
Correct.
Yeah.
So this year my next position I'm shooting for is I wanted to get with the city, and that's why I came to this meeting, is to ask you, what is an area or even multiple areas that we can concentrate in? Because we're just going to start the next week. We come out of our darkness because our club goes dark for a few months because everybody's boating.
Sure.
Now we're just getting back to our first board meeting, and I'm looking for new areas that we can get with the city as these people start coming back in next month. All right, we're going to organize another big cleanup, but I'd like to attack the city in some way to help out. So my question to you is, do you have any areas that you've heard complaints that you see, that we could work with the city to organize a really nice cleanup?
Okay. Well, offhand, I can't give you an answer.
Right.
Other than to say that the desert above Bison is always a real problem.
Yeah, we hit that every year.
Yeah, I've done those cleanups myself.
If you're looking for something within the city limits.
Within the city limits, we want to do something for the city.
The Pima Wash below Acoma, where Acoma crosses Pima Wash in front of the church there, that whole wash is just loaded with trash and is nasty in many
Okay, so then
respects.
who would I have to go to organize this so we can, so it's all a legal thing? Because we need to get a dumpster, and, we show up with garbage bags. We've had the garbage places have actually donated bags for us.
Yeah, Republic
Yeah.
is
To fill,
pretty
yes.
good about that.
Our events coordinator is Brian Allen is his name. And do you have his
Yeah,
number?
we should probably, I'll let Brian know.
You need his number?
'cause
Yes, please.
Jerry's got it here.
Jerry's got it.
854-0771.
Hang on now, 854-0771.
0771.
Okay.
Now, he's the guy in charge of whatever processing you need to do with what it is you want to do.
Okay.
He knows all the rules. He'll keep it legal and make sure that everything's done on the up and up.
Thanks.
So
I'll call
he's-
him.
he's your
We'll
go-to
organize
guy.
something. Appreciate it.
That's just one suggestion. That's one that comes to mind.
Okay.
And I mentioned it to Chief Doyle, and he's got it on his list for our trustees to take on when the weather cools down a little
Right.
bit. But yeah, if
So I
you're,
said, we're just getting ready to start back up because the weather's cooling and everyone's coming
Right.
back into town, but this is one of the first things on
so
my
if you can
agenda.
get to it first, more power to you, but that wash needs help.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you so much
Yeah.
for coming forward to do good things for our city. We really appreciate that.
That's awesome.
And I think we should all be blessed that we're not from Houston or Florida right now.
Yeah.
With that in mind, Mark,
Let me get these people back. Go ahead.
Totally different subject.
Okay.
I would like to know if anybody here knows of someplace in Havasu that is collecting clothing for hurricane victims.
Yeah. My understanding was just for Red Cross, Salvation Army, and some of those other nonprofit organizations.
I think they're looking more for
I
money
know
than
there
stuff.
was an article in the paper that ASU was trying to get permission
Yeah.
to
And I think Charlie's right. Most of the organizations are actually prefer cash at this point because have been a lot of donations of clothing and whatnot. So
But my closet needs to be cleaned.
garage sale.
Mine too.
Not a bad idea. Then I can donate that much.
There you go. Anyone else?
with that in mind, the Houston is now the Florida situation. We're a 1 in a million year community here, but does it give you pause to look at our disaster preparedness paperwork?
Oh yeah, we do regularly, and I'm glad you mentioned that because about a year after I became mayor, it was in '07 if I remember right, about 40 of us went back for FEMA training back in Maryland, Emmitsburg, Maryland, and it was really good training. It was a week long, and that group, before you come back, they try to figure out what's the most likely thing that can go poorly in your town. And guess what it was? A flood. A flood. So they trained us on what to do if we were to have a major flood here because of all the washes and whatnot. So yeah, and so we've had a lot of training. I think it's probably time that we do it again. FEMA hasn't done those programs as much as they used to, but we have people not just from the city, but surrounding communities. Parker, we have people from the hospital, and it was all designed to make sure we were prepared that if we had a major catastrophe here, we would know what to do. And it was so well done, Jim. I mean, literally, you were set in teams, and there were policy teams, and so you had elected officials on the policy team, and they would put me on fake TV, basically, but I had to be prepared to tell the community what they needed to do, how to evacuate, all the rest of it. They did a scenario where during this giant mess of all the floods and whatnot, and everyone trying to figure out what to do, my phone in front of me in the policy room, and it's a lady on the other end saying, I hope you can help me. I'm in a plane. I'm not a pilot. My husband is, and he just had a heart attack. How do I get this plane down? And it's like, oh, man. So fortunately in the policy room, I had the airport manager, and I said, Steve, this one's for you. And he got on the phone, and he walked her through how to get that plane to land.
Oh my God.
But that's the kind of preparation they do.
It's very realistic.
It's very realistic. I mean, when you're going through it, you feel like this is really happening. And so it was a great program. But you're right. I think it's something that we could.
And we do
update.
have a very comprehensive
Yep.
emergency operations plan at the city. We can't be as open about sharing that plan with people like we used to pre 9/11. Now we have to be a little bit more protective of that information because it could potentially, if it's known how we're going to respond to an incident, that can change the incident. So we're a little bit more protective of who gets copies of that plan, but we do have a plan, so the community can take comfort in knowing that fact.
And we also had something a couple of years ago with the Tri-City fire chiefs and department and the police departments that happened in our Tri-City area, how we would all work together. So we've had, not that big of one, but we've had, smaller ones around.
Right, and we do have agreements amongst all the various communities for assistance if any of the communities need it.
I found one thing about this town that I really appreciate. I really, really appreciate. We've been here 2.5 years, and the volunteerism that goes on in this town is incredible. And somebody was mentioning, I guess you was mentioning about it cleaning up.
Right.
That's an incredible situation. I don't care where you're at, to work together as a community for the common good for all.
Right. No, I agree. No, there's a lot of great volunteers in this community. You see it all the time. When there's a crisis, the community responds to it.
I love it.
Yeah, so, and I do share concerns about those in Houston and in Florida. I don't even know how you even deal with that. That Hurricane Irma is so large across.
Wow.
It covers the entire state of Florida. Nobody's going to be. That's going to be a mess. I don't even. And and they have all those high rises now, 50, 60 stories of apartment houses. I saw one guy on TV saying he was going to wait it out, and I'm like, are you kidding me? And his response was, well, if things get rough, I'm just going to go to the elevator shaft.
Really?
And I'm thinking, I don't think that's a good
That's
idea.
a good idea.
So, yes, sir.
A small comment along that line. I was at Hurricane Andrew in Tampa, Florida, when it crossed over there because I was in the Air Force. We weren't allowed to leave. We had to stay with our aircraft, tie them down, load them with bombs and fuel, and have them anchored to the runway. And I got to see 7-foot-high water underneath my aircraft, getting drowned, standing around it wondering when the world's going to end. Trust me, it's not an experience you want to go through.
I saw in the news last night they interviewed a couple that were actually flying to Miami, and the reporter asked them, "Why are you flying into Miami when so many people are trying to get out?" And they said, "Well, we have a house there. We're going to go protect our property."
Good luck.
And I thought to myself, Darwin's calling you folks, so that's it.
Yes, sir.
Is the 95 bypass dead?
Yes. Yeah, it might be out there 20, 30, 40 years, but effectively it's dead. We were talking about roads earlier, and it's a sad state of affairs because roads throughout America, whether they be local communities or highways, are in desperate need of repair. And so what's happened is that in many cases, building new ones are really long-term projects because most of the money is being used for ongoing maintenance. I think, and that's primarily because the feds over time have reduced the amount of money that goes to highways and infrastructure. And that needs to change somehow because as a country we can't have our basic infrastructure falling apart. So that project, I think they estimated would be $10 billion. I can't remember the number. It's dead. It really is. And I think it would have been a great project for our community, but it's not going to happen.
Mayor, you're doing a wash right now. It looks like the Red Sea on Kiowa. It's wide, deep. My goodness. What are you planning on doing with that? I mean, they're going to shore it up on the sides, or?
I'm glad you brought that up.
Son of a gun, that is something else. My.
What we do, we actually, like our roads, we have a list of washes that are in desperate need of repair. it's a little bit of a difficult dilemma because we have to go through the Army Corps of Engineers to be able to do all of that. We use tax money that is collected from all of us. It's called flood control. It goes to the county and then they disperse it back and based on a formula. And we desperately need that money to shore up some of those washes that are threatening homes and commercial businesses. We heard yesterday there may be a proposal by the county because they are in desperate financial situation of taking that money from us.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's huge in there, that's so deep in there.
And we are working to, over the last 50 years, those washes, gone from this to this. We actually went to see the federal government because it's under federal jurisdiction. We went back to Washington to see what we could do to get some assistance since we paid for the darn sewer project. How about helping us with stuff that's under your jurisdiction? While I wouldn't say it fell on deaf ears, nothing happened. So, I mean, that's the trouble when you only have 50,000 people in your community. I'll be honest with you. Your voice, while it's heard, it's not squeaky enough, and we continue to try, but it's tough.
That wash carries a lot of water.
It does.
And so
It's huge.
it's being designed to accommodate, I want to say a 50-year event. And obviously we get those from time to time, depending on where the water's falling in the city. But that's one wash that has the potential to do a lot of property damage if it carries a 50-year event again. So that's why it's being designed the way it is to safely carry that
It's
water.
going to be great, but the problem is, it's all dirt. It's going to go away. It's going to erode if we don't put something to protect it.
Well, I don't know if the area that you're looking at is going to have concrete
Oh, it's gonna be
sidewalls.
okay.
I don't know.
Because we're
but-
putting in concrete.
I haven't been there in a month
Well,
or
we're
so.
doing concrete, some of those rock cages.
Yeah, there's,
all kinds of
right
different
behind my
things.
house, they're putting in, a boulder riprap, and then they're coming in and gun hiding it on one area where it drops over the street, and there's drop structures going in. You're gonna see a lot of activity going on in the washes. And like the mayor said, we depend on those flood control dollars to do those projects. And hopefully the county will change their mind about taking that money away because we desperately need it to keep that CIP project
Well,
moving forward.
and it's collected from our
It's
citizens
your
for the
money,
distinct purpose of using it for flood control projects and to say, no, we're going to take it because we can't balance our budget and we're going to use it for something else. It's just wrong.
Well,
So-
they want to use it to give sheriff's deputies raises.
What do we have the sheriffs, why can't, we paying for the sheriffs, and what are they really accomplishing? I mean, I know they do the highway, but why do we, doesn't our own police force take care of our area? Don't we have enough to do without paying them as well?
Yes.
Yeah, the sheriff's department, don't get me wrong, they do a very good job. If you think about Mojave County, what is it, the 5th largest county in the United States? And there's only 3 major cities, Bullhead, us, and Kingman, and then everything else is county. So, so they've got a lot of area to cover, and they do a
We pay
great
for that
job.
as well.
We do. We pay for that, and we truly believe, and we're waiting to make sure that this is just something we heard last night from somebody else, that this was going to be proposed by one of the supervisors to sweep these funds from the cities to help with their economic woes. We're going to fight that like...
Wow, that's going to cost money.
Well, it's just wrong. There are other things that they could do, like we did 10 years ago in the Great Recession. If they had reacted the way, and this is just my opinion, if they had reacted the way we reacted when the Great Recession started, they would be building reserves like we are today, but they did not. They took a different course of action. We took a very difficult course of action where we actually have 100 fewer employees today than we did 10 years ago.
We got smaller, they got bigger.
So, welcome to our government.
I would just like to add that I think it's a good idea if everybody pays attention to this kind of stuff and maybe goes to the supervisors' meetings to hear who's proposing what.
Well, we'll know
Like that.
soon whether it's on their agenda on the 18th. And we'll be there if it
Is
is.
Blake coming in this area soon?
He was here a few months ago.
I know, I was there.
Okay, but I haven't,
Did I get any results from it? No.
I haven't seen him since.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I think it's past 9 o'clock. I appreciate all of you being here. Next month, we will be the first Friday in October. We're going to go to the clubhouse at the golf course there on Acoma, London Bridge
Lake
Golf
Havasu
Course.
Golf Club.
Lake Havasu Golf Club, I guess it's called now. So we're going to give that one a shot.
By the way, the golf course looks better now than it has in 3 years.
That's what people tell me. That's what people tell me. Well, it's got local ownership now. So that's a good thing. All right, thanks again.
Everybody.
Thank you, Mayor.